is regarding Office 365. Your host here today, Daryl as a Service Webster and Lorian Strand. Hey, say hello, Lorian.
Hello, Lorian.
Great, yeah. Oh, jeez. Bit of the old Aussie humour there. Okay, Kiwis get it too. There's still a little bit of housekeeping. Whoops. Let's turn off some of the loops going there. Fun. I'm still getting used to the streaming stuff. Anyway, yeah, housekeeping. We've got some of that housekeeping out of the way. We are going to keep an eye on the screen there if you're joining us via Facebook Live or YouTube Live for some of your questions to ask live. And we've got Steve Nguyen. I've practiced that surname there, Steve. I got it completely wrong in the video earlier. And Angus Florance. So, yeah, Steve, just introduce yourself. That'd be great.
Yeah, Steve Nguyen, Yammer product evangelist with the Yammer product team. Thanks for having us. We were just joking. I'm the only one here without an accent, right?
Yeah, if you're from America, yeah, it won't feel like an accent. And Angus,
it certainly does. It still feels like an accent to me, Steve. But Angus Florance, I'm part of the Yammer product marketing team here in San Francisco.
Cheers. Thanks, Angus. Look, today's topic is around Yammer and connected Office 365 groups. You might have seen Steve's tweet out there, and I kind of borrowed your face there, Steve. Thanks for giving me proxy permission. But the tweet there saying that now the connected groups are available and rolling out in Office 365. Yeah, great announcement there, isn't it?
Yeah, we're really excited about it. I think it even goes back to probably 2012 when the Yammer acquisition was announced. I think there was a lot of promise there. People were excited. They thought, Yammer and SharePoint and Microsoft can come together and do pretty amazing things. It's been perhaps a little while coming, but we're really excited that it's finally here. And we've always believed that Yammer is this place for people to really do rich collaboration and rich group work. And now with this integration and the ability to store files, have a team site, have Planner, and be able to manage tasks, and OneNote. I mean, you've got OneNote right there in your background. I'm a OneNote honk myself, and I think having OneNote integrated is a huge benefit and a great way for people to be more productive in their Yammer groups.
Yeah, and I think that's where one of my first questions was leading there. Is we're calling it Yammer Connected Groups or Connected to Office 365. So tell us a bit about how that works, because Yammer's been a product in its own right, standing alone and doing its thing for enterprises and a social aspect and doing a great job. And there's been this slow transition into bringing the overlap there of allowing collaboration on documents from an Office 365 perspective. And now we're seeing this great an intentional and good overlap with the SharePoint sites and documents. Yeah, so tell us a bit about that. I mean, the group side of it there.
Yeah, the overall connection across Office 365 is that kind of Office 365 groups layer, and so we think that there's going to be huge benefit in being able to have information and have content be shared across a group, whether you're in Yammer, whether you're in Outlook, or whether you're in a Microsoft team. So that's really kind of the connected group experience coming to life. And Gus, maybe I think you had a really great example of that today, kind of playing out of how there was a document that started on Yammer and then you shared it out in other places or had the ability to share it in other places. Maybe talk about that.
Yeah, it was kind of even surprised me how easy it was, even though I should know this, but had an email from a colleague who uses email quite a bit, and we just presented a PowerPoint deck to him, and he said, can you share that with me to review? So within Outlook, I was able to go attach file. All my Yammer groups appeared in the group section. I could browse to the SharePoint file where we had stored it because, Steve and I and Connie, we work in Yammer, so we had all our documents stored in that anyway. Was able to attach the file directly into Outlook and send it from there. So it was a great way of, as a team, we work on it in Yammer, store it in SharePoint, and we could share it through email as needed, which was kind of cool, I thought.
And I also think that's a great example because people often get I guess, caught up in where does the conversation live, or where should the conversation live. But I think the great thing about Angus's example is that in this case, it didn't really matter where the conversation happened. It happened to be an email, and he very easily was able to traverse his groups and figure out the right file and find the right file to share into that message.
Well, I think that opens a question that I was wanting to ask is, we talk a lot about how conversations can originate in different places and formulate in different places. And obviously, one of the big strengths of Office 365 groups being the substrate to all this, or Office 365 in general, is that single identity, single location. So the question I actually had was around the team side of things. So we can, to create an Office 365 connected group to Yammer, a Yammer connected Office 365 group. I'm sure I'll get the terminology right at some point. We have to create the group from within Yammer. Now, similarly, teams can create a group from within the Teams interface. Now, if we want to connect a team to an existing group that was created by Yammer, is it as straightforward as just browsing to the existing group that was created, or is there anything special we need to do?
I can take this one if you want, Steve. It will be as seamless as the way to look. I guess the main concern we have today is Teams is obviously private groups, and Yammer supports public and private, and the majority of stuff we do is in public, and so automatically you cut out half of your group. So I think the plan is definitely to enable team collab and being able to, I guess, move a conversation or escalate a conversation from more asynchronous to real-time chat within the same team. But that's on the roadmap at this stage, so it's still separate to what we do today, yeah.
Well,
so there are some phases, aren't there, that sorry, Lauren, you go ahead.
Thanks, Darryl. Look, the question was actually, I think, on that group side of things in terms of public and private. One of the things in the Yammer connected Office 365 groups FAQ is that once you've connected the two together, you can't invite external users to the Yammer group because that won't work with Azure AD. But that's a little bit confusing because in Office 365 groups, we can invite external people. So is that an engineering constraint that's going to be addressed at some point in the future?
Yeah, so Yammer had external users for probably a couple of years now to support external users, and the way the Office 365 groups do it is slightly different, and so they don't necessarily just match together. So today, external groups won't necessarily get connected to the service, but the plan is, in the next 6 months or so, is to Yammer to basically handle external users the same way that Office 365 groups does, and in that way then you'll be able to enable that functionality. But that's more just a legacy thing where Yammer already supported external groups and users, but in a different way to the way the Office 365 groups guys implemented it. But we are converging into the same process.
Great, because I think that's an exciting thing to look forward to, because a lot of people, and certainly what I've been doing with a lot of customers, is helping them use Yammer for conversations with external participants, but using Office 365 groups as the repository of all the files and everything else, whereas Yammer is the conversation location. So yeah, to know that will be addressed and I guess hopefully simplified going forward would be fantastic.
Yeah, for sure. External groups is such a massive one. I mean, I don't know why I was doing it the other day, but we were basically looking through my top 20 groups that I use, and in my top 5, 3 of them were external groups. So the power to be able to pull people in from outside your organization and have a consolidated conversation that everyone can see the history and context is really, really useful compared to like an email that can fork and go that sort of way. So yeah, I think definitely once we align how that works in the back end, the benefits of integrating SharePoint and OneNote and all those other great benefits will be hugely advantageous.
And I think that's also a huge advantage over Teams as well, because Teams, as we know, can't do external users. So, that's
but they're in the same position as us, where Teams will be adding support for external users at some point too. Yeah,
I found that has been one strength with Yammer from the outset too, is the ability to fire up that external group and have a place to talk about things, have your files there, and have that whole experience. So if someone comes in, they're seeing that same environment that you would see, and they're experiencing it the same way. And I can see that transitioning and being more of a holistic experience as it becomes part of that Office 365 group fabric. So really good to see that come in. I think what I was going to lead into too is that you do have some phases planned, don't you, Steve and Angus? There's certain things that you're leading up to. This is just phase one with the integration or connection to a SharePoint site, a document library, a planner, and OneNote. What's next following that?
Yeah, so this first phase is really focused on net new Yammer groups. So any new Yammer groups that folks create will get this connected group experience. In wave 2, we'll start to look at the legacy Yammer groups that a lot of networks have, and looking at going back and having the connected groups connected with legacy Yammer groups. As we look further down into kind of waves 3 and wave 4, we start to look at things like the external groups and external networks, like Gus was alluding to. So there are some kind of licensing considerations that we also need to figure out, but also reconciling with the way that the group's infrastructure works today in Office 365.
Yeah. Now, along with that, we have seen, even with 365 groups, when it came out as the Outlook flavor to begin with, there was a number of things that IT pros are asking, what about compliance? What about controls? And how do I turn it on or off? Those inevitable questions. We actually have a good question here from Nick Bauer over in Australia as well. He's got a question around the compliance side of things too. As Yammer is connected to Office 365 groups, will it follow with that same compliance, controls and features that you have within the rest of Office 365?
Yeah, you want me to take that, Gus?
Sure, Steve, you take all the compliance questions. That suits me.
I'm happy to send them your way too. So I guess you can kind of think of it in phases. But with the Office 365 groups integration, the huge benefit is in storing those files and having those documents in SharePoint. Then you get all the richness of document retention and compliance that SharePoint brings. So that's a benefit there. For a little while, we'll still have documents that reside in Yammer. So you still have the ability to upload documents directly into Yammer. But our goal is to get out of the file storage game within Yammer. So our ultimate goal is to reconcile the file storage space and have it be the document library ultimately. It's going to take us a little bit of time to get there. We're doing some kind of back-end engineering to move files into the right place, but also move Yammer messaging into a place that you can also be able to take advantage of DLP and e-discovery. That's on our roadmap. There's projects underway to take care of that. So in the near term, by moving your files with the Office 365 connected groups experience, by moving your files to the document library, then that takes care of a lot. We're working on the messaging component as well.
And that would actually kind of, on the compliance side of things, spins me off into the deactivation of Office 365 groups. So there's a process where if a group becomes inactive after a period of time, it can be deactivated. But you've also got the opportunity to then reactivate it. Will that flow on with the connected groups experience, where the Yammer group will also be subsequently deactivated and potentially be reactivated if needed? So, I mean, an example would be things like a Christmas party steering group, or a merger and acquisition that kind of goes cold and then comes back, and those kind of scenarios.
Gus, do you have a good answer for that?
And I can answer this at a very high level. I'm certainly not a technical expert at this, but we basically will be supporting all the Office 365 group policies that go in place, and Yammer will adhere to them. So we've implemented soft delete, which I think would probably be kind of what you're talking about here, where you could kind of remove a group and delete everything, but then if you need to bring it back, you could, and restore all the SharePoint and other bits that connect to it. So we're certainly supporting all those things. Any like around naming conventions, creation, that sort of stuff, we completely support as part of the group service. So Yammer's just like a Teams or Outlook or any other service that hooks into that. We're trying to follow that as closely as we can.
And
excellent.
From an integration perspective, and I remember asking this question back at Summit. So within the Office 365 groups experience, for the, and I'll use this term quite loosely, Luddites that want to live and breathe in Outlook, we've now got the ability to go to when we click on the group in Outlook, the files, the OneNote, and those areas, will there be the, I guess, a Yammer, button extending into that as well? So we can, when we click on the group in Outlook, we can also, click on that and go straight to the Yammer-related conversations in that group. Group-related conversations in Yammer.
Well, the way that we've set it up currently is that the conversations are, when you create the group, you're choosing where the conversation will live by the location of where you create that. So if you create the group in Outlook, then the conversation will live in Outlook. If you create the group in Yammer, then the conversation will live in Yammer. And we made an intentional decision there because there was some, the modalities are different, right? And you mentioned that in emails can fork, right? I can take people off, I can add people, and so the modality is different than a Yammer thread. So we had to kind of make a different consideration for where the conversation lives. So as such, you're not switching back and forth between two places where a group can have a conversation.
But just to
so I guess maybe it's more of a question for Christoph. Sorry.
So just to build on that, I think the integrations, though, do happen at the connection level. So, for example, if you've got the SharePoint site that was created from a Yammer group, click the conversation button in the SharePoint site takes you to the Yammer group. So, or if it's an Outlook, it takes you to the Outlook one. So it'll always take you to the right place. And then the other advantage, the flip side of that is, because every Yammer group is now in your global address list, because it's in AD, you can now send stuff to a Yammer group from literally anywhere inside the suite. So whether you're sending an email from Outlook, you can address Yammer groups. If you're in PowerPoint and you click share, you can share that to the Yammer group that do permissions. Same from OneDrive, SharePoint, all those things. So it kind of goes both ways with how you want to share.
So maybe it's more of a question for Christoph. So if you're saying that when I create a Office 365 group from Yammer, and that's where the conversations live, will that group then no longer surface in Outlook like other groups do?
Correct.
You won't see Yammer groups in Outlook, right. And then vice versa, you won't see Outlook groups in Yammer in terms of the conversation feeds. Now, if you want to browse, if you want to attach a file from a Yammer group, you'll see those like if you're in Outlook and you want to attach a file that's stored in a Yammer group, you can do that. And vice versa, if you want to attach a file in Yammer from a group that you're a part of in Outlook, you can certainly do that. So the files and everything are shared, but the conversations are separate.
And that's another reason to move your document storage to the doc library versus uploading them to Yammer. So
I think your dog has a
question. Hey guys, we have another question. Yeah, bloody dog. Sorry. That's how we talk down here. We have a question over on the Facebook live stream from Chris Laylock, who's interested in how this relates to external networks. And I think this plays in again to your phases and how you're rolling out. At the moment, it's net new groups. How does the connected groups within Office 365, shut up, dog, relate to those external networks?
For the time being, they won't be affected. It'll be out in further waves that we figure out how to bring this connected group experience to external networks. But for the time being, there's not a lot of effect to external networks. Those will, by and large, remain the same.
And is there, I guess, a light at the end of the tunnel in terms of when you expect all of the integrations to be completed and all the waves to be rolled out? Obviously, I'm asking how long is a piece of string, but are we talking within the calendar year or flowing into calendar year 18 as well?
Yeah, good question. I think it'll go further out into 2018 is my understanding. So we also want to get this first wave out and understand. It's kind of the Yammer philosophy. For those that have been around Yammer and know Yammer for a while, you guys know Yammer's. We want to get this first wave out, understand how people are utilizing it, understand how it, what the uptake is. So there will probably even be iteration points of what we've currently delivered as well. And obviously the backfill of legacy Yammer groups, that's going to be a pretty big effort for us too. So yeah, I think it'll take some time. And then there are other things that we're looking at with regards to Skype for Business integration down the road. That'll be something that we bring to bear as well.
I think just building on what you're saying there, Steve, there's really, Lauren, there's two tracks. There's one track that's around connecting Yammer groups, and whether that be like today, new, public, private. The next phase will be existing, public, private, and secret. Then there's external groups, and there's external networks, and then there's freemium, and so there's a wave of connecting groups and networks and customers. But then alongside that, there's, I guess, more feature integration that will just continually happen. So, for example, things like we want to add the calendar functionality, so you'll be able to create events inside your Yammer group that will attach to your Outlook calendar. We want to build, like, for example, and these are just kind of examples. Skype for Business Steve was talking about. We're working on that. Having trending that group appear inside the feed. So there's having plans and tasks built inside your Yammer group powered by Planner. So there's like a connecting phase, but then there's also, we're not waiting to finish that to start adding, I guess, like the end user functionality of the advantages of having these all connected together.
There's also Office 365 group connectors. So what you know from Teams and what you know from Outlook groups, and being able to bring a Twitter stream or a Zendesk feed into your group. We're actively working on that as well.
So we kind of see now too why there was perceived, well, in reality, quite a delay with some of the activity and features around what's Yammer coming up with next. There was a lot of groundwork you guys had to put in to try and get to this level. There was bringing in identity and trying to get that unified experience across Office 365. Now that that's in place, it looks like you're able to ramp up and start delivering a lot more.
Yeah, there's a lot of work in the past, I'd say 18 months of just compliance work, just getting Yammer to the right compliance level within Office 365. And a lot of that was behind the scenes work. It's not sexy stuff. It's not things that are, there was a blog post, but it's not something that's going to make headlines. So yeah, I think now that a lot of those things are out of the way, and now that Yammer is an official part of Office 365, we are able to, we do feel like we're able to move a lot more quickly on things. And in fact, we're hiring. I mean, that's showing in our hiring as well, that Microsoft is investing in resources to bring all of these things that we're talking about to life. So lots of open positions if anybody is interested in the Yammer engineering position in Redmond or San Francisco.
So we have another question there on the YouTube live from Morton Mistrad. Forgive me if I've said that wrong. He says, I understand a group is created in Outlook and gives a conversation or Outlook conversation. A group created in Yammer gives you a Yammer conversation. Why don't let people decide the conversation freely when groups are created from SharePoint or from Azure? So I see that. I know there's a conscious engineering decision that if you, as a group, are interested in using Yammer as your conversation engine or Outlook or Teams, whatever, that as you create that group, that determines the rest of your provisioning and your conversation experience. So Morton's question, I guess, is if I create a SharePoint site currently, and this is actually just a recent announcement, isn't it, that when I create a SharePoint site, I will still create an Office 365 group under that, but it seems to be favoring one conversation experience over the other. I think that was your question, wasn't it, Morton? Is there going to be some way of being able to choose, well, I'm creating a site, what conversation experience do I want to give my people?
Yeah. I think there's that's definitely what we want to get to. I think Outlook was the default, so it just kind of is the default. But certainly, we turn this on today for people. So that's certainly the plan, is to give people a choice. I think, whether you create it in Planner or SharePoint or, Power BI, wherever these is connected, you do want to be able to choose which conversation. And I think even the fact that we picked the way that you have to have one or the other is certainly not necessarily fixed forever. Like, we might decide further down the track that, hey, it makes sense for a group to have an email and a Yammer and a team conversation. I think the decision made to keep them separate at the start, because it's much easier to converge those later than it is to pull them apart if we decide to do it the other way. And so I think it will come. This is just the beginning. It's a big step forward, but it's just the beginning, and sort of everything can go from here.
I think what would be great in the future is... Sorry, Steve.
Real quick, I was just going to say, I would say don't underestimate the level and the time of conversation that happened to make that decision to separate the Outlook conversations and the Yammer conversation. Literally months of conversation happened before that happened. So lots of smart people kind of thinking about that problem. And so like Angus said, that's the initial decision we made. As we get feedback from people and learn how people are using the experience, that could change.
I think what would be great to see in the future, and I'm sure it probably will come, is the bot framework paired with machine learning, so that where we have this scenario now where it's a which product should you use to have a conversation, and we have all these different escalation points of being able to forward an email into Yammer or respond to an email with a Skype IM or start it in Teams and switch it to video. I guess what will be, I'm sure will happen over the next few years, is where the bots coupled with machine learning will start to analyze what our patterns are and saying, hey, this group tends to favor this conversation modality, or this, the nature of the question that you're looking to ask would favor this type of conversation style. I'm going to post it here for you. So instead of me pressing Control N in Outlook and typing in your email, I start a new conversation and it chooses for me where, that conversation should start.
Yeah. Yeah, and I look forward to, even just things that exist today, like the connectors, the Office 365 group connector. So just today in our team, the team that Gus and our team use, there's messages coming in from Yammer about certain messages that we're looking for or filtering for. And that's a great way for people to kind of break out of their team, which can be kind of siloed, but break me out of that team and into a conversation with the broader organization in Yammer. So I think that's just kind of a first step. But to your point, Lauren, I think as we get better intelligence, as we get better relevancy about what types of conversations people are having and understanding and even advising people on where to go for a certain to reach a certain audience, perhaps. Yeah.
Well, guys, we're closing in on the half hour. We're kind of trying to make it consumable and not too long to watch. But it's been really good talking with you, and just highlighting this great thing that you've started that journey into connecting with Office 365 groups, and we're looking forward to the next phases coming and what that really means. Thank you both for joining us. It's, you might say, a virgin broadcast regarding Office 365 in our publication. So we're pretty happy to land two guys who are willing to tell us about this great announcement. So for those of you who are watching, and you might be watching from YouTube or from Facebook, you've kind of got the gist. We are running a Facebook page. We are using a YouTube channel, Yammer and Office 365 groups. I want one of those T-shirts, please.
I'll save one for you, mate. I'll save one for you.
Thank you. I'm a slim small, right? No, anyway. So you get the gist, guys.
You need the deep V, don't you?
Oh yeah, the V-neck to show off the Washington State Bigfoot look. Anyway, you've completely derailed me, guys. I was trying to give some call to action here. Call to action. Come. Join our Facebook group, follow our publication on Medium. Sorry about the AWS outage today. That really wasn't our fault. I'd started to wonder if it was connected to my car problems earlier. So you follow it there. We've got a Twitter handle, ReOffice365. I hope you get the hint there. ReOffice 365 is regarding Office 365, and all our writers and people who are going to be joining these sorts of broadcasts are all about discussing Office 365, thought leadership, how to apply it, a few tips and tricks, but really trying to make it relevant to you, because Office 365 might be called a commodity, but we still need to talk about it and figure it out, don't we, guys?
Absolutely.
Excellent. Well, thank you all for joining us. So I'll try to tidily end off the stream. Thank you to the guys and girls that joined us over on the live streams on Facebook and YouTube Live, and hopefully you'll join us on our communities. Catch you later.
Thanks for having us. Thanks, everyone, for joining.
I was trying to do a police squad, Frank.
I thought we were supposed to do a mannequin challenge at the end.
This is like that closeout.